Hey, what's up guys, it's MugenLord here, and today we're going to talk about the current pricing of video games. I know last video we talked about Star Wars Outlaws when Ubisoft is pretty much nickel and diming gamers with the $70 package of the base game, and then locked behind a Jabba the Hutt quest behind the $130 I guess you would say version of the game, and then you even have a higher tier version of the game that pretty much has the battle pass that has all of the DLC and everything that's supposed to be collected all into one game. And then of course we also talked about CD Projekt Red, who said that microtransactions has no place in single player experiences. Well, we have an intern at the Embracer Group who pretty much said that the $70 game model is just not sustainable, and he goes on to pretty much give his thoughts on why and how that may change sometime in the near future. So even before we dive into this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. So there's an article from the VGC that talks about this. It says $70 games will go the way of the dodo, believes Saber CEO. Speaking to IGN, former intern COO of Embracer, Karch, discussed Saber's divestment from the Trouble Group and where he sees Saber's place in the market as a standalone publisher. The exec said he believes that Saber, which encompasses studios like Nibble Giant, Star Trek Infinite, 3D Realms, Ion Fury, don't know any of that, and potentially 4A Games, Metro, occupies a position between independent studios and AAA publishers. Karch cited that Helldivers 2 as an example of the type of middle market game it would like to emulate. And this is why I said games like Helldivers, games like Stellar Blade is definitely important to the industry, and also Power World, because these three games have really, I guess you would say, exposed what's going on within the industry. Here it is, you have games like Helldivers. Helldivers was a much cheaper game. It's a AA title. But the fact is that this title, which was much cheaper to produce and it was a AA title, it was able to rank in a shit ton of money, and it kept the retention of a lot of players, and players are still playing it to this very moment. My brother Keo Lancer and DX Strike love the hell out of Helldivers, and I still have to get around to it. I have too many games, but I definitely need to go give the game a try myself. Everybody loves the hell out of this game, and it was a game that costs much less than a AAA game, but people love the hell out of it. And then you have Power World, and we ain't gonna stick too long about the whole Power World situation, but I will say this: Power World just showed that, hey, I don't care if this game is trying to mimic many different titles and mesh it all into one. Gamers just want a fun gaming experience, and you have this company who Pocket Pair, who went in with a small team and a small budget and came out making millions and millions and millions of dollars, all because gamers just want something fun. That's all. It doesn't matter if it's copying other games or whatever like that. People just want to have fun with the game. That's all. And then of Stellar Blade, we already talked about with Stellar Blade, with the beautiful, sexy female protagonist, which has pretty much been starving the gaming community for over a decade by producing some of the most unattractive, most ugliest female characters within the industry, and then the journalists try to gaslight you into believing that you're the problem, you're sexist, you're all these different type of buzzwords, and you're a conspiracy theorist for even trying to pretty much show that there's something going on here. So Stellar Blade, if it becomes successful, which I believe it most possibly will become successful, will also start poking the holes in the game industry as far as what they have been doing when it comes to female protagonists. So if that does well, this may also cause other developers to see this and say, hey, you know what? We need to stop catering to this DEI and all this other nonsense and just go back to what we used to do in the early 2000s with a lot of our female protagonists as far as their designs are concerned. So that's very important. And the fact is that this company, seeing what Helldivers is doing, seems like it's a really good thing, a pretty good thing to do. So let's go. So it says, Catch cited Helldivers 2 as an example of the middle of the market. He told IGN that one of its upcoming titles, Space Marine 2, will retail for $70, but only because he's concerned audience would see a cheaper price as emblematic of poor quality. Now, you can't say that people see this price that is poor quality, but then you praise Helldivers 2. for its pricing and the quality that it produced. Like Helldivers already proved that the price is, despite what the price is for Helldivers, you have a good quality game behind it. So I don't understand how you praise it and then be afraid to give that pricing, that's much cheaper than $70 because you're afraid that people may, relate that or correlate that to quality. I don't understand. So I think that as a game become more expensive to make, the title's going to go the way of the dodo. I do, he said. I just don't think it's sustainable. Look, you remember how the hype for Cyberpunk, which I think actually ultimately performed okay. But when the expectations are so high and so much money is put into one title, it's hugely risky for the company that's doing it. What if it fails? You remember what happened when Ubisoft a couple years ago, all their titles slipped out of the year. And then all of a sudden they were entirely different place. It's hard to recover from that. I think the market is going to shift to development, which is not necessarily lower quality, but there's going to be emphasis on trying to find ways to reduce costs. With thousands of job cuts announced across the game industry in the past 18 months, courts acknowledge that AAA development is going through a major shift and claim that past trends of sky-high budgets and lengthy development periods aren't sustainable. I think that there's going to be real shortage of game content over the coming few years, he said. You've seen how many layoffs there's been, and you've seen how many games have gotten killed. But we have a lot of good projects going on that I'm proud of and that I really, really feel strong about. And now we're going to have this discussion. Now, Quartz was pretty much, we're going to break it down because Quartz was pretty much essentially saying that, developers at some point is going to try to find ways to cut costs while at the same time maintaining quality, which essentially means that, hey, we're going to go back to doing what things used to be. Because back then, games weren't, as far as their budgets are concerned, weren't that astronomical. They were able to still produce great games. And now we have gotten to the state of this Hollywood cinematic experience with AAA games where, like I said before, I'm going to keep saying it again, Spider-Man. They said it cost them over $200 million to put that fucking game together. That's ridiculous. So now they have to cut all the fluff. And I also want to say this too. The games are not selling well. Not only because, and we keep always pointing to why these games aren't making any money. And we always keep pointing the number one reason why that the games are woke. No, it's beyond wokeness. And I'm going to keep saying this before. The games being woke and having all these diversity, DEI and everything like that, that's just one part of the problem. That's just one part. If you strip away the wokeness, we'll still be back here at this problem. Why is that? It's because of how games are developed today. These high budgets, and also they're charging us more but giving us less. We see in games with standard features that used to be the standard within the game industry back in the day within our games, and now you're cutting the content and you're putting it behind battle passes, fighter passes, loot boxes, and everything of the sort. Perfect example too, Halo. Halo has always been that game back in the day, from the original Xbox even up to the Xbox 360, that was packed with a ton of content. Halo went on for years. Then you had user-generated content that just kept the game fresh, that kept people coming back for more and more of that experience. And then all of a sudden, you go now, fast forward to this generation, and then you have the Xbox Series X and Series S release of Halo Infinite, and then it's missing a lot of its core features. And most of the features that used to come standard with Halo are now locked behind battle passes or locked behind updates that you have to update the game in order to get, but it was never packaged in the game to begin with from the very beginning, which should have been the standard. So you're starting to see a lot of these games that's starting to get that. And now you're looking at how Tekken 8 is being treated. Now you have a Tekken store, and that Tekken has its own battle pass. So now you're going to start to find a lot of custom items that you in costumes from the original Tekken games being locked behind these battle passes, where these things used to be options that you're able to unlock at some point within these games. So this is another thing that they're doing. So they charge you more, and then they put microtransactions in games, and which we also talked about before. How is it that games like Tales of Arise is a single player experience, and yet all of a sudden now we have transactions within them. And when you put microtransactions within a single player game, it also affects the development and the philosophy behind the game. Because now you need to be able to create a gameplay philosophy in order for the implementation for these in-game features that was never there to begin with, which means you're going to artificially make the game much more difficult, or you're going to artificially make resources hard to attain in a single player game in order for you to try to discourage from players from playing the game traditionally, which is just play through the game. Now you want to make it a grind fest, which now some gamers today don't have the patience to do that, so they'll take their money, put money into the microtransactions for a single player game, remind you, and spend money. So they're always trying to find ways to nickel and dime the gamer, and that's starting to become a problem. Now, if we go back to what gaming used to be, then we wouldn't even have this issue. And the fact is that, as I said before, the Helldivers is now that example of a model that they should emulate as far as quality is concerned, while keeping production costs low. I think there could be an eventual shift. I think if companies stick to this and follow this, I think it will be a win for gamers altogether as far as that's concerned. We start to get cheaper games, but high quality games. That's all we want. We don't need these big productions or anything like that. Just keep it simple. Hit us with that great fun factor, replayability, and we'll keep coming back supporting. We don't need any of this nonsense and whatever. And I think developers need to go back to that. And I think once they go back to that, a lot of these problems will be solved. I think both sides will be happy. The developers will be happy because they were able to turn a profit, and gamers were able to get that satisfaction and continue to support that game, as long as the developers, as I said, respect our time. That's all we want. We want our time and money respected. That's all we want. Stop listening to all this other nonsense. So I think this is the core. I think this is the core aspect to what needs to be fixed within the industry itself. Because woke or not, we're still stuck with a problem here. And the problem is the way the industry is going when it comes to gaming and how expensive this stuff is. And it also still boils down to a lot of the creators behind it. They're not really creating great stories like they used to and great gaming experiences. So wokeness can go away, but we still have that problem. So we also have to focus on that, guys. It's not just the wokeness that's killing our favorite IPs in the industry itself. It's also the philosophy behind game design itself that's also killing the industry. So we have to attack both the problems, not just focus so much on what's woke and then just forget about the other practices that's been going on way before this wokeness has stepped in here. So remember that, guys. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I think that there could be a possibility that games could get cheaper if we get more games down the line, just like Helldivers. I think that would shift things around. I think if we get more games like Stellar Blade, as far as the representation of female characters with things that used to be, and we get more games like Power World, where the game is just overall fun. It's just regular people who don't even have an inch of experience came and created a fun game for people to play. I think if we have things like that, a mixture of that within the industry itself, that it will open the eyes of our favorite developers and say, hey, you know what? Let's go return back to form. So if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe button for more gaming content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.